Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Joining me today is Tim Murphy, poet, well, and author, I guess. We're going to talk about a couple of your books today. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. To get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background.
I was born in 1951 in Hibbing, Minnesota, and moved to Moorhead when I was 6 months old. I graduated from Moorhead High, then went off to Yale, where I was graduated as Scholar of the House in poetry. I then commenced a career in business, relocating permanently to Fargo in 1976. From the age of 17 on, I have had one goal, and that is to become a major poet.
One goal. Well, your poems cover a lot of ground. They cover...
And shoot a lot of pheasants.
Yeah, okay, good.
Right.
But hunting, loss, grief, etc. Can you tell us about kind of this and then your writing process and how all that transpired?
Well, although I'm a formal poet, I'm highly confessional. The protagonist in almost every poem is Tim Murphy. And I don't pull any punches. I have not had an easy life between the struggle between belief and disbelief, struggles with alcohol, my sexual orientation, which is gay, and of course hunting is just a complete passion. It's the reason I'm in North Dakota. So as far as the writing process is concerned, I simply catch a tune. I overhear a line in a small town in a Norwegian accent or a German accent, and it's in perfect meter, and that'll start me off on a poem. Or I think up a line myself. I do a lot of my composition in my head at the wheel of my Ford Escape during hunting season.
Well, speaking of that, you know, I guess for a lot of us, hunter and poet are not two things that you think of together often, but you said you love to hunt. Can you talk about that aspect of your life and personality?
Yeah, well, I think the book of hunting poems is the Cynegetica. I forget the author's name, but it's 3rd century Rome. Writing a poem, constructing a business plan, or killing a pheasant have much in common. There's a symmetry and an organization involved, and the hunting is just a great release. When you get into your 60s, Lord knows you need as much physical exercise as you can get, and chasing pheasants through a cattail slough behind a black lab is about as strenuous an exercise as you can find.
Well, talk about your book here, Hunter's Log. You've got it with you, which has mostly, I guess, hunter-related poems in it.
This book is drawn from 3 of my previous books. It is drawn from Mortal Stakes and Faint Thunder, and it's drawn from my next 3 books, which are going to be coming out in 2013 from Fort Mandan's Dakota Institute Press. Somebody once suggested that I publish a book of hunting poems, and this is kind of a Johnny one-note book. It's all about hunting with Labradors. Dove hunting, duck hunting, goose hunting, pheasant hunting. But it is the first book that I have published, which encompasses a huge span of time. It goes about 1984 up to the present. So in a sense, it's a selected poems on a single theme. Now, at the time that I received this suggestion, I only had about 25 pages. But by last fall, I had 100 pages, and I decided that I would pursue it.
Well, with that said, how about, could you read a couple of selections for us from the book?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I'm going to read what I regard as the best poem from my first book, which was The Deed of Gift, published by the Storyline Press in 1978. This poem is entitled The Blind. Gunner's a decade dead, wing through my father's mind as he limps out to the blind, bundled against the wind. By some ancestral code, fathers and sons don't break. We each carry a load of which we cannot speak. Here we commit our dead to the unyielding land where broken windmills creak and stricken ganders cry. Father, the dog, and I are learning how to die with our feet stuck in the muck and our eyes trained on the sky. The next poem is in the new double volume, Mortal Stakes and Faint Thunder. I've had 4 black labs, all highly trained. This particular dog probably had 1,400 birds under her belt because we do so much dove hunting when we finally had to put her down. The poem is dedicated to Dan Treat, doctor of veterinary medicine here in Fargo, who was taking care of all of our animals. And I referred to him once in a book as St. Francis of Fargo. So that is the obscure reference in the final quatrain. And the problem with black labs is that they only live 10 or so years. Other than that, they are perfect. Huntress for Dan Treat, DVM. Her first bird was a crippled mourning dove. She somersaulted down a ditch, head over heels in love, buttoned her bird, and bounded up the pitch. Her first drake dropped beyond the refuge sign. Wriggling under the lowest wire, she swam a perfect line as though posting a proof of her desire. Her first goose gave her nose a nasty peck. Battered by its unbroken wing, she leapt to grab its neck and, growling, dragged it back for me to wring. Her first loss was her superhuman ear. Hand signaled on each unmarked run, she could no longer hear whistling wingtips, even at last the gun. At 14, she was walking into walls, fouling the carpet, losing teeth. Farewell to mallard calls and decoy spreads, wild roosters on the heath. To St. Francis of Fargo fell the chore. The Nembutol a gentle thrust to launch her from our shore. The last look in her peerless eye was trust.
It's always something when you lose a hunting partner such as that, because they become part of the hunt and part of the whole.
Well, part of the family.
Part of the family, exactly.
Yeah.
Who introduced you to hunting?
I was following my father and his friends afield by the time I was 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I understand you follow a certain style of poetry called formal poetry, going back centuries and even maybe ancient times. Can you talk about this some?
Yeah, well, the first lyric poet that we know by name is King David, and the Psalms are metrical poetry. And in point of fact, free verse, non-metrical poetry has ruled the roost for about 100 years. But I'm sure 98% of the great poetry written in the 3,200 years that we have the lyric is formal. And I never even considered writing in free verse. So I write in meter and rhyme, as the viewers just heard.
Mm-hmm. You've also kind of come back to Catholicism over the years. Can you talk about this and sort of that retransformation you had?
Yeah. I was so put off by the Catholic Church's benighted position on homosexuality that I was easy prey for leaving the church. And a brilliant philosophy student at Yale, Francis McCarthy, kind of converted me to atheism. And in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I pursued every ism on earth: transcendental meditation, Taoism, Buddhism, and nothing was working for me. About 7 years ago, I was involved in a business disaster amounting to $113 million, hog farms in 7 states. And I decided that the best solution was to kill myself and leave my life insurance to take care of my heirs. And as I was loading the gun, I got a telephone call, and it was Francis McCarthy, whom I hadn't talked to since graduation day. And he said, "Tim, I just had a vision that you were loading a double-barrel shotgun, and I believe that you're in the gravest spiritual and physical danger. Francis is no longer a brilliant atheist philosopher. He is a Benedictine monk. And he had this vision, and he Googled me, and he called Quest and got my phone number and spent 2 hours talking me out of doing something really stupid. And after that, it was pretty hard not to return to the church.
Have you stayed in touch with him since?
Oh, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And the church has been just marvelous. Very accepting, very supportive. I look back on my 30 years in the darkness as a heretic, and I honestly don't understand how I survived.
Why do you love writing about this area and even the Red River Valley? Just because, well, I should.
Well, write what you know. You know, I write a great deal about the Rocky Mountains, about Alaska, about the Arctic, about Canada. I mean, I'm a poet of the American West. And when I say American, I mean North American West.
Let's switch gears here for your second book. Let's talk about your book of poems. Well, you say two books, really, in one binding, Mortal Stakes and Faint Thunder. It encompasses poems, I guess, for a 7-year period, I understand?
Yeah, it's from 2002 to 2009.
So tell us about that book and the poems.
Well, Hunter's Log is a gigantic, fun love song to North Dakota and South Dakota. Mortal Stakes, Faint Thunder is an altogether bigger and more ambitious and more difficult book. It addresses alcoholism, belief and disbelief. It includes many, many poems from my partner who was battling with chronic lymphocytic leukemia and with lymphoma, and who died a year ago. It's got lots of hunting poems in it. And the reason that I published 2 books at once is I couldn't find a publisher. My first 4 books were accepted by the 4 publishers I submitted them to, even though I was an absolute nobody at the beginning. But when I became a devout Catholic, and Catholicism even enters into hunting poems these days, suddenly they all just dropped me cold. So that's why it took so long. And I was very, very fortunate. Brenna Doherty at the North Dakota Humanities Foundation sicked the Dakota Institute Press on me. And Clay Jenkinson, who is an intellectual hero of mine, the proprietor of the Jefferson Hour, and I think the most important public intellectual in North Dakota, just showed up at my door and said, "Mr. Murphy, do you have a manuscript ready for press?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, Clay, I've got more inventory than Ford Motor Company. I've got 7 manuscripts ready for press." And he said, "Well, I want them all." And I doubt if I'll ever look for another publisher again.
Well, with that said, could you read a couple of poems from Mortal Stakes and Faint Thunder?
I'd be happy to. Here's a poem called Two Hands Prairie, which is really a love poem to both Canada and to the High Plains. The river El Rio de las Animas Perdidas in Purgatorio is the river of the lost souls in purgatory, it's in southeast Colorado, and my partners and I lost about 50 million growing pigs about 2 miles from its banks. So the title that the Spaniards gave it in the 16th century was absolutely applicable to us. And the listener has to think of this as the Hudson Bay drainage, and this is the Gulf of Mexico drainage. This is what I mean by Two Hands Prairie. I love the fact that there's a continental divide sign between Jamestown and Valley City. And of course that refers to the Cheyenne, which goes to the Arctic, and the Jim, which goes to the Gulf. Two Hands Prairie. Dream of the Great Plains as a pair of hands, and every finger is a lengthy river. South hand points northward, and the north hand south. The horse culture, with all its rival bands, endured whirlwinds, blizzards, pox, and drought. The bow lies broken by a beaded quiver. Rainy River, the Red Deer and the Red, Souris, Saskatchewan, all form the Nelson, flowing forever north. All of them bend over a land where hopeful youngsters wed and send their sons somewhere afar to soldier. Two hands extend in friendship toward a border which neither nation's army need defend. Hand reaching north, the Arkansas, Ohio, Missouri, tributaries in their dozens, El Rio de las Animas Perdidas in Purgatorio in Colorado, and the Belle Fourche forking into the Powder. Rivers, like men, have many distant cousins. And the other poem is a sort of a hunting and fishing poem, but it's primarily a devotional poem that draws from and makes deliberate allusions to Psalm 103 and Psalm number 42, Soul of the North. Out of the wilds I pray, bound by my northern birth to fish, to hunt the earth, and follow my forebears' way, I mutter, I have sinned, wander the knee-high grass, flourish a while and pass, whistling into the wind. As char swim to the clear tundra rivers that run under the midnight sun, as wolves follow the deer, drawn from ford to ford, as clamorous geese in V's, throng to the thawing seas, all creatures of one accord, my soul thirsts for the Lord.
Thank you, Tim. In a couple of the forwards in your book, your friends talk about how your writing's better known throughout literary circles and in larger cities than it is in North Dakota. It may be better known in Edinburgh, Scotland than it is in Edinburgh, North Dakota. Why is that, and does that bother you?
Well, of course, there are 1.5 million people in Edinburgh, and there are maybe, 150 in Edinburgh? I just have not promoted my work locally. I've published maybe 450 poems in the most prominent literary journals in Australia, in England, Scotland, America, and we just don't have any such venues in North Dakota. However, the Dakota Institute Press is determined to correct that situation.
Okay. And that wouldn't surprise me with Clay and David over there. Now, a poet isn't a profession that we think of as much in the modern age. What is it about poetry that you love, and have you been able to make a living at it?
By no means. Robert Frost didn't make a living as a poet, and he's the poet to whom I am most often compared, and the situation has gotten substantially worse since the 1930s. No, I've made a living as a venture capitalist, a life insurance agent, and a farmer. Mm-hmm. In terms of what drew me to poetry, my mother was a Shakespearean actress, my father was a poetry teacher. The first words that I heard were poetry. My mother took one look at me when they put me in her arms, and she recited A.A. Milne's Timothy Tim. And I'm going to ask you to indulge me as I say it. Timothy Tim has 2 blue eyes, and 2 blue eyes has Timothy Tim. They cry with him whenever he cries, and whenever he cries, they cry with him. Timothy Tim has 10 pink toes, and 10 pink toes has Timothy Tim. They creep with him wherever he goes, and wherever he goes, they creep with him. Timothy Tim has 1 red head, and 1 red head has Timothy Tim. It sleeps with him in Timothy's bed, and in Timothy's bed, it sleeps with him. So, I mean, there was no way I was going to end up being anything, the first human speech I ever heard.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There was no way that it would ever, yeah, and you took the words right out of my mouth there. So with that said, then obviously you were influenced at a very young age, as you just stated there. But Then talk about some of your influences as you grew up. You talk about meeting Robert Penn Warren, who wrote All the King's Men when you were at Yale, and how did that influence you?
Well, Mr. Warren did not teach poetry at Yale. He taught the novel and short stories. But his primary interest was always poetry, and he won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. He took me under his wing the first day of my sophomore year and gave me a 3-year one-on-one tutorial. He had me memorize 30,000 lines of poetry from the canon, which is a staggering amount, even for a teenager, because he wanted me to never make a metrical mistake. And it was a great discipline that exposed me to hundreds of years of poetry and exposed me to many languages. In terms of, and about 10,000 of those lines were Yeats, William Butler Yeats was kind of a ruinous influence on me. I was so derivative of him until I was 25 that the earliest poem in The Deed of Gift is written at age 25. Of latter years, I would say that the 3 poets that most influenced me are Robert Frost, Thomas Hardy, and King David.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you sat down and wrote poetry?
I didn't start writing until I was 17, a senior at Morehead High.
Okay.
I wanted to be a folk singer, and my giving up folk music for poetry was a great gain to both arts.
Well, what about other writers or poets who you admire or who have influenced you over the years?
It might be that the greatest poet of the 20th century is Borges, and a friend of mine has done a magnificent formal translation of Borges, which the widow won't let him publish. It goes out of copyright in 2031. Unfortunately, Bob Mezzi is 76, and you know, I'll be 80 in 2031, so I don't know that I will live to see the text. But that just struck me as a thunderclap. As I was coming to grips with my own sexuality, Constantine Cavafy, the great Greek poet from Alexandria, Egypt, showed me a way not only to write poetry, but to live my life.
Okay. You know, we talked about it before we came on the air. There are some wonderful illustrations in your books. Who did those?
Okay, all of my books, 5 of the 7 books have been illustrated by Charlie Beck, our great woodcut artist down in Fergus Falls. Charlie is 88 years old and still playing his A game. I've used 12 Beck illustrations in my various books. Earlier this month, I gave a reading at the Rourke where we hung all 12 of those woodcuts. When my first book came out in 1998, my publisher asked me who I wanted to use for the cover, and I didn't even have to think. I said, I want Early Snow by Charlie Beck. So Charlie and I have had a long collaborative relationship, and as I have said in speeches, Charlie sees the prairie as I try to hear it.
Oh, the shot that they just were showing was the canvas backs.
Yeah.
Was one of the illustrations.
Yeah, I used canvas backs to preface Faint Thunder, the second book in this double volume, because it's a rather joyful book and it's a rather joyful painting. Mm-hmm. Eldridge Hardy, the illustrator of Hunter's Log, is regarded by many people as America's foremost outdoor illustrator. Serious critics compare him to Winslow Homer. And I was familiar with his work from boyhood because he illustrated Jose Ortega y Gasset's majestic book of essays, Meditations on Hunting, which really informs my whole philosophy and that of my hunting buddy, Steve Serdall, every time we go afield. So when I pulled together the manuscript, I tracked down Mr. Hardy and I emailed him the manuscript and I said, this may strike you as absurd, but I'd like you to do 10 pencil drawings for a book of poetry. And I figured I'd never hear from someone so rich and famous. And I got an email back the next day saying, young Mr. Murphy, I pulled an all-nighter for the first time since college. I read your book twice, and I would be honored to illustrate it. And when he sent us the drawings, we all just flipped. And I wrote him a rather fulsome note of thanks, and he told me a great story. When he was a junior in high school, the class project was for each student to compile a little anthology of their favorite American poems and illustrate it with photographs cut out of Life or Look or Time magazine, and all the other students did that. But Eldridge chose his 10 favorite Frost poems and did 10 pencil drawings. And he said it changed the course of his life. And he said, when I finished Tim, I felt like I was 16 years old again.
Wow. Well, Tim, I wish we had more time. We don't. But if people want to get the copies of your book or more information, where's the best place to go?
Oh, Amazon, or better yet, go to the fortmandan.org and go into the Dakota Institute pages. Order directly from the publisher. They make 3 times as much money and it costs the same.
Tim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's all we have this week on Prairie Pulse. And as always, thanks for watching.
Well, that was